Let's talk about something important. What it means to be a free man, what it means to be a sovereign man, what it means to be in control of your life. There's a lot of people who sit together in the workplace and they feel the incessant need to talk about their lives, to talk about what they're doing in their spare time, to talk about what their plans are for the weekend and so on, going to some cabin in the mountains, skiing, going for a holiday trip, taking the boat out and sail in the sea and so on, and pretty much do a lot of unnecessary and, quite frankly, non-productive activities. Basically, what they're gonna do for fun, what their idea of fun is. And they're sitting there selling themselves on being free men. But they're not building to be free. They're not persuasive enough to be free. They're not sold on themselves to be free. Because everyone knows that by and large, a lot of jobs, not all jobs, some jobs are important. I mean, if you're an engineer, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're a dentist, whatever, if you're a steel worker, if you do actual manual labor, then that's actual work. But a lot of jobs these days are pretty much garbage. They're junk. It's just typing in some Excel spreadsheets, writing reports, writing Word documents, reading and answering emails, minuting some meetings. That's pretty much just excuses and plannings and so on. And basically, this is what robots could be doing. A lot of stuff could be outsourced. And whilst I'm not here to take a dig at the work life and or make predictions about how many of these jobs will disappear soon because of the introduction of AI and robots and so on, I do want to talk about about persuasion and about how so many of these people who sit there, who drink their coffee in the morning, who scroll on social media, who talk about anything else than work because they don't want to talk about work, they don't want to do work, they're so bored and tired of their jobs. They'd rather be drinking some margarita at a beach, far away, relaxing, and not doing anything that has to do with work. And that's fine. I mean, I don't blame them. If you've been doing the same job for 30 years, then I guess you sort of like get stuck in a pattern and a routine. But that doesn't mean that it's wise. It doesn't mean that it is productive. It doesn't mean that it is fruitful. In fact, I actually saw something the other day. This might have been AI though. But I saw some woman who'd been working for a company doing the exact same work tasks for 65 years in Japan. She was a Japanese woman. And I think what I saw was sort of like her retirement ceremony. I think she retired at age 95, basically having done the same tasks for 65 years since she was 30, working for the same company. That's essentially a whole life that's, well, I'm not going to say it's wasted because I really don't know what her job was. But the point is, if you're sitting there talking about anything else but work while you're at work, instead of making plans and production, instead of planning for and producing for being a free and sovereign man, being a free and sovereign human being, then what are you doing at your job? Why are you wasting all of that time? Instead of talking about bullshit over the water cooler, talking about the football game that nobody cares about, talking about the Olympic Games that are upcoming, talking about the ski trip or the trip to the Maldives that you had. Why aren't you rather building a side business? Why aren't you rather building some other income that you can potentially can retire from, or that could speed or accelerate the retirement business? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you selling yourself on building for the future instead of talking about nonsense? Instead of letting your ego dictate what you're doing. Because that's really what you're doing. You're letting your ego dictate what you're doing. You're sitting there, you're telling stories, you're telling jokes, You're even telling lies. A lot of these stories are just lies. They're bald-faced lies, and it's a dick measuring contest, and you're sitting there trying to impress other people, other men mostly. For what, really? For what? So you can feel better about yourself? So you don't have to go home to your sucky wife and your boring life and your disrespectful family? Think about it. Honestly. You aren't persuading yourself to work enough. You aren't persuading yourself to work hard enough. You aren't sold on doing the actual hard work, which is fine. I mean, I guess it's not for everyone. But if it isn't for you, then why are you talking about being a free man? Why are you talking about winning in the lottery? Why are you speaking ill of your boss behind your back? Why are you ditching your coworkers for? Yeah, sure, your colleagues and your coworkers, maybe they're not your friends. And in one aspect, in one regard, I guess you could call them your competition, which is fair. But you're just kicking the can down the road. You're separating yourself further and further away from retirement. You're making it more difficult for yourself. You're making your situation more difficult. And you're essentially deceiving yourself ultimately. See, here's the thing. If you're truly sold, if you've persuaded yourself on being free, on escaping the rat race, on not having a job, or not answering for a boss, then why are you wasting all that available time, all that free time that you have? Why are you wasting it? Why aren't you doing something productive? Why aren't you building a customer list? Why aren't you doing cold calling, organic outreach? Why aren't you offering services and solutions? Why aren't you selling more? Why aren't you building that vehicle that will generate more money? I don't know what it is. Because I could tell you what I'm doing. I could tell you what I've done in the past and what I'm doing now, but that's not going to help you because you're not me and I'm not you. And you have other advantages and disadvantages that I don't have. So it's futile. But my point is the following. You need to sell yourself on being convinced that you need to work hard on setting yourself free, on becoming financially free, on being a sovereign man. That's what persuasion is all about, and that needs to come from within your own head. I can't do it for you. You need to do it yourself, because otherwise you're going to be sitting there next day talking about the same garbage, about the football game, about the vacation, telling the same lies, telling the same jokes, and nobody really cares deep down because they're all equally bored. That's really what it is. So, enough doom and gloom. But seriously, sell yourself on becoming a free man, becoming a sovereign individual, not having a boss to reply to, or accept that you will have someone to reply to. I mean, it's up to you, but persuasion needs to come from within. And with respect to persuasion, making money, making more sales, and so on, get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you are watching and or listening to this, and I'll see you there.